Assalamualaikum. Welcome to Member Spotlight. Today we have with us Nejat Abdurahman. Welcome, Nejat.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. Would love to hear your journey about where you started and what you're doing right now.
Thank you again, Kashif. So, my name is Nejat Abdurahman. I'm the founder of N-BAC. It is a leadership advisory firm that works with organizations to help them develop leaders who are able to manage up, across, and down so that they can translate the strategy into execution.
All right. What inspired you to choose this field?
So it's interesting. Like I actually, my background is economics. I studied economics, and then I did my MBA. And I think, as is with many other professionals, we always want to work around, something that is meaningful, something that is of impact. And so, after getting my MBA, I actually joined an Islamic financing company because that's something that I was like, with my background, I'll be able to share, kind of contribute my skills in this area. So, I was a manager at that organization. I was a sales trainer, and eventually, I kind of realized that organizations don't really fail because they have bad strategy. They have great strategy, they could have great vision, but
Mhm.
really what gets them to achieve that and even make the impact that they want to make is really the leadership within that organization. That's really the limit to an organization because the leaders can create systems in place, they can create that collaboration, everyone unleashes their potential. And so as a trainer, I've noticed that there's even studies that show that. So I wanted to make a bigger impact. If you call it, I found another calling. Now, I was doing that within that organization already, but I've always wanted to also have my own business. I come from my family is all in business. That's the background that I have, and I've always wanted to do it, but somehow, there's always that hesitation. It is interesting, actually. What happened was during the pandemic, and I don't know if this happened to you, Kashif, but we were all asking questions, right?
Yes.
It personally shook us all, and we were asking this question. And one of the questions that I asked myself was, oh my gosh, what if this was the end of it all?
Okay.
And I said to myself, like, what would I have regretted not doing if this was the end? And obviously, there's a list of things, but one of them was I would have regretted not starting my own business. And so at
Mhm.
the end of that year in October, I quit my job, resigned. I'd worked with that company for 9 years, but I quit my job and started my own training company. And I had this vision of, how to develop leaders. I had passion for learning. I myself was like a curious person, always reading books, always learning. And that was the field, that was it. And then I went ahead and started this company. So it's now, what, 5 years and a half.
Okay. How is the journey so far?
The journey has just been amazing. I wouldn't say easy, obviously. It's not. Starting your own business and working with clients is not easy. You yourself, like myself, I'm growing as the business is growing. It's as much of a personal development and personal growth as you're thinking about growing that business. It's different, but it's really truly fulfilling. Because what I do is we work with organizations that are already making an impact, that have a positive intent to make positive contribution in the world. And when we work with their leaders, we're basically amplifying that. And so it's truly rewarding. Definitely not easy, but something that you would say, this is, I'm glad on this journey. So every year, that's what I say to
All
myself.
right. So let's dive deeper into N-BAC. What type of services are you providing or the programs that you're offering?
So at Impact, we work with organizations that are growing and that are seeing, that want basically their team members to collaborate and grow together and be able to have that services. And so one thing that is common is you'd see someone who is excellent as an individual contributor,
Mhm.
and then the company would be like, that's amazing, now we're going to promote you to management. Now, what happens is what got them to be very successful as an individual contributor is not going to help them become successful as a leader, because the skills needed to lead someone is very different from the skills that you need to be an excellent individual contributor. And so we have a new program that gets this individual contributors to be ready to lead. We call that an Embark program. So that's the foundation of leadership, how they can give feedback to people, work with people, have the leadership mindset and emotional intelligence. And then we have another program once that person is done, or if someone is moving from being a manager of teams to being manager of managers, we call that program Ascend, because at that higher level, also individuals need to have completely new skills and different skills to be able to not only collaborate, but also influence decision making and bring about an impact in that organization by collaborating. And then the last other type of level that we have is leadership development program for executives. And so we have leadership advisory. And the core of what we do is we do believe that leadership development programs shouldn't just be theoretical or insight, it should actually translate into action. And so we use adult learning principles where we use assessments to create awareness within that individual. And then
Mhm.
we have like this micro learnings where individuals are learning, and then we provide that with coaching so that it translates into action. So those are three levels of leadership programs what we provide. And then we
Mhm.
have one-time workshops where we work with organizations. We give them assessments, kind of give them like that team development workshops in one-day experience to create alignment within the team. So it really depends on the organization that we're working with, because
Mhm.
we don't just give the same service to organizations. We have that conversation so that we can see exactly what it is that would um, help this organization, and we tailor that programs for them specifically.
Okay. What is there any particular industry that you work in, or it's industry agnostic, your trainings, and what size of companies do you generally work with?
We work with mid-sized organizations, I would say like 100, 200, 500, and above that in terms of employees.
Mhm.
In terms of leadership, it's really not industry specific, because we do the people skills and leading. So I've for some reason the industries that I tend to work with end up
Mhm.
being like financial services companies, healthcare, and even aviation. So we do different industries, because it is really all about the people and leadership skills that is kind of applicable across the different industries.
Okay. When you go into your clients and you look at their, you do their assessment from leadership perspective,
Mhm.
what are these some of the things that you find in them that are lacking?
Well, so there's two different types of assessments, so let me clarify. But the initial assessment that we would actually have a conversation with leaders to find out what exactly they're lacking is usually is lack of communication breakdowns, and lack of collaboration, which is not intentional, but that is something bound to happen when people are working together. And so when that, and then the organization can have priorities, but then different people, because of that communication, we could be focusing on different priorities. So those are the main things we see within organizations is communication breakdown, uh, leading with emotional intelligence, and then some part of that is how do you then empower the team members, everyone that works in that organization, so that they bring about their best to the organization. So those are the
Mhm.
initial conversation we would have, and different organizations are going to have different pain points, right? If someone is growing, so we work with them to see it's not necessarily that something is lacking. Sometimes things could be going smooth,
Mhm.
but then for that organization to go to that next level, they need a different set of collaboration and alignment on priorities. So we also work with that. Now, when I say the assessments and communication, this is more about informing the person what type of communication style they have and
Mhm.
how they can communicate with people who have different styles. And we all have different style, right? Every person is unique. And so the way, just that understanding of who you are as a person, what your tendencies are, and then how to communicate with other people really opens up people's eyes and increases that collaboration by also giving people the same language to use. So those are the assessments that I mentioned. Now, other assessments obviously that we have is like leadership 360 for when someone wants to do to grow. We have 360 leadership where they get assessment feedback from everyone that they work with for that purpose of getting again to the next level. So those
Mhm.
are different assessments. I hope that explained,
Yeah.
or did
Yeah,
it?
definitely, definitely. When you're working with, for example, when you're working with the top leadership, the C-suite,
Mhm.
and what are some of the blind spots do you see there for them?
Blind spots.
Hmm.
I mean, it again, it's different for different people, but most leaders um, they fail to recognize how much people might not really open up around them. There could be some people in the organization that have brilliant ideas that could really transform the organization, but
Hmm.
sometimes they might not be sharing that, or they might not be sharing that in a way that influences decision making. And
Okay.
actually, that's one of the reasons I wrote the book Managing Up is
Hmm.
this is how people in the organization or anyone, whether they're individual contributors or a leader, how can they communicate what their whatever it is, whether it's their idea or about their work to the people that are higher up, like above them, their bosses and bosses' boss. And that is the one thing that leaders assume that everyone is sharing, but no, it does require a little bit of the skill to be able to communicate upwards.
Okay.
And
All
then,
right. So,
yeah.
share with us a little bit more about your book.
Oh, the book. So my book is Managing Up. It is a topic that was, especially for emerging leaders, that was coming up. It really is the basic foundation of that book is that being a great leader to your team is not enough. And there's actually studies that show that when you're able to lead across and also lead up, then your career grows twice as much. And then you also are able to make a business impact twice, 50% more. And so the managing up is how leaders can communicate with their managers and the people and across.
Hmm.
And that's the one that most leadership development programs miss is we focus on how we can be the best leader to our team. But how we communicate upwards, it does affect us as individuals in our career. It also affects the organization. And that's what I was mentioning earlier is how do we empower everyone in that organization to manage up and be able to show what they're doing, but also align. If everyone can align what they're doing with what adds value to the organization can really accelerate and grow.
All right. Sounds good. And also in this today's age, like we are going through AI, and AI is impacting a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of companies or the employees are working remotely. And how would you, what would you suggest to leaders in the like leading in the age of AI?
So that's actually one of the things that I'm really focusing on at N-BAC is leading in the age of AI. So first of all, I think we all recognize that AI is here, and the ones who use it are really benefiting in terms of productivity, in terms of what they can, how much more they can achieve, and the benefit that we can get from it. And so, from a leadership perspective, leading in the age of AI, we have two. routes for it, right? So if I see it, the first one is in terms of how leaders are using AI in their business. Some of them are trying to, they hear that AI is changing everything and they're trying to apply the tools that they come across. A better way of doing that is to really look back at the business and say, what is the biggest problem that we are currently facing? Or what's the goal that we have that will really take the organization to the next level? So, your biggest goal or your biggest problem, and then see what AI tool can help us solve this, right? And it's always, as is with anything, start with just one thing and then pilot that. Once that works, move to the next problem. And so instead of starting with the tools out there, because there's so
Mhm.
many shiny objects, there's like it's real to really start from the business perspective. Instead, I feel like CEOs cannot really outsource AI strategy for any of their leaders. It really has to come from the business strategy perspective and saying, how are we going to apply AI? Which
Okay.
area of our business is the one that can benefit the most, and then starting with that one. The other key aspect, which is the one that I'm heavily focusing on, is we can apply AI, but AI just applying the tools is not going to get the business the results, because as is with any change, people are scared of change, and everyone is resistant to AI. Not everyone is excited about AI. There's so many fears involved. And there's actually a study that recently came out that shows that attempts to implement AI are not failing because it needs the support of managers and leaders within that organization. And we need effective change management, because this is a big change, right? So, how do you lead in the age of AI? We have programs not necessarily on the technical aspect, but
Mhm.
the people aspect of the change management and the programs that the leaders need to have to be able to lead in the age of AI. The same thing is happening with managing up. I think every individual now has to look at their role and tasks that they're doing and say, now that I have AI, how is this role changing? And what's the unique value that I can add with the help of AI, right? And we have to translate that, because leaders are now have multiple data, but there isn't that alignment. And that's where leading in the age of AI that I'm really heavily focusing on is the people aspect, the change management, and then creating that alignment in the abundance of data that we all have.
All right, awesome. Definitely looking forward to learning more from there. As it's just the last request, the for the audience who are watching it and who are going to watch it, um, what message would you give to them regarding leadership?
Leadership is a skill that is developed, and leadership is not a title. I would say it doesn't matter if people are following us because we have a title. It is not like true leadership is gaining that followership from people because we've impacted them in a way that really we touch them and they remember us, right? And so leadership is a skill that we continue to refine. For people in that already have business, they are leaders right now. I would say how you empower the team and how much leaders you create is really a true measure of a leader. And not necessarily there's always a question that I ask people is, if you were to not go to work for a few days, what would happen to your business? And if the answer is it would run smoothly, then you're leading well. If the business would not run smoothly in your absence, then probably you need to do better in terms of your leadership, because leadership is all about enabling people to do the work and creating the system so that the business doesn't really rely on you. And if we all do that and empower each other, the organization goes to the next level.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Najat, for being with us and being a member at MCOP. Really appreciate your wisdom that you shared with us today, and looking forward to seeing your company grow.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here, and always great to be a member of great organization.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum